Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Thanks for letting me come in the other day and observe reading. So how do you think the lesson went?
I think it went okay. I haven't ever taught maps as a text feature before, so maybe playing through a little better like the criteria, because trying to explain what a map is without using the word map is kind of abstract for second graders.
Yeah.
But I feel like they got the gist of what a map is, and we related it to our science and social studies that we had been finding maps in. Even today, I had students during Read to Self time using the iPad with Seesaw trying to find maps. And then some friends, 6 friends I think it was, found it while you were in here. And only 4 of them did it correctly. So some found the map but then didn't learn from it what the author was trying to tell you with the map. They just said, like, this is a map and it wants me to know where this place is, but they didn't say, they actually want you to know, like, this is where you can find this fish in the world. So we went over some of it today, retaught a little bit of that, and then I had a few more friends find maps and be able to explain their thinking today. So I think that it was the first day. I think it went okay for the first day, the first time going through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought it went really well. I liked the idea of them trying to describe what a map is without saying map. That was a very good analyzing question. It really got them thinking about it. I was kind of surprised that they were able to get it with a little bit of guidance, but I thought that was really good. And you said that 6 students found a map?
On Friday.
Yeah.
Yep, and then more found it today. But only 4 of the 6 did it, learned correctly from the map. So 6 found the map, but only 4 learned correctly. And then today we pointed out too, one of the students found a map of the zoo in the book, and that was different than a map of like land.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when we talked about like Adventureland, you get maps when you go there, and then kind of brought up some of those other types of maps that you didn't get to see in books.
And I remember you mentioning something about the map of the library.
Yes.
Yeah. And is that something that Mrs. Matledge helps them with, or is it? Yeah.
So they map out where the fiction, the everybody books, and the nonfiction books are.
Gotcha. Okay. What do you think worked really well during whole group lesson? And maybe like what didn't work well?
I think having lots of examples was good, but I think it would have been better to have more of a variety of examples, like showing some other types of maps that weren't just of places in the world would have been better. I don't know.
No, I think that was
First
good.
day it was.
Yeah, it was kind of an introduction. So, how many, think back to the other text features as well, how many days do you think it took to touch on those before they actually got it?
Yeah, it depends on the text feature, because some are pretty easy. Like bold print word, that's easy for them to find.
Right.
Subheadings took 3 days. Whole group, because they want to point out the heading instead of finding the subheading. So some are easier than others. And diagrams were pretty easy for most kids. So usually 2 days per text feature, whole group, but some of them take 3 days, and some kids still didn't get after 3 days, and so we teach on small group. You saw Tristan at the table, and I had to take him up there to the posters, and he still couldn't match it to the posters.
I saw
Does it
that.
look like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that. And he was trying to find, I don't know what it was, but I held up to the diagram, and it's not even close to what it didn't even match. So I think having the posters there is helpful. I think maybe having something smaller of the same thing at the table when we're working, so that we don't have to interrupt everybody else's learning to go up there and figure things out would be helpful for next time.
So I know you kind of talked about the Seesaw, and that 6 students found it, and then only 4 were able to successfully talk about their learning. How will the students know when they fully get it? How will they know that?
They know it when their parents get to see it.
Oh.
So like when I looked at it, then I just wrote down the names of the friends that found it, but then couldn't successfully tell the learning from it. And then those friends met in a small group today, and then they were able to fix it. So once they get to share it with parents at home, because have you used Seesaw? Okay, so then I get to approve it, and their parents can see it. So once their parents,
so they just fix their Seesaw issue they were having.
And then a higher group that I have I gave them sticky notes today, and they picked one nonfiction book, and I had to try to find 4 of the 8 text features that we've talked about now. So they had to label with a sticky note, this is a caption. They couldn't find 4 captions, that'd be 1 caption, 1. We talked about graphs
yeah.
today, so to find those in their books. So we're meeting tomorrow to go over that. So Seesaw is one way, and then checking in with their independent reading books when we're at the group would be another way to make sure that they've got it.
So I noticed that you were asking some very good questions, like kind of how I talked about getting them to identify how to say map without using the word map, to really engage their thinking and calling on several students who did not have their hands up.
Mm-hmm.
What advantages and disadvantages exist within that?
I think a disadvantage is anxiety with kids. But in here, they know up front that all day long, no matter what subject it is, it's their job to be listening and engaged in the lesson, because I will call on anybody. So in math, it's the same thing. So it's consistent throughout my day. So they know that they have to be doing their job, because I could call on them even if their hand is not up. And of course, you still have friends that raise their hand and want to share right away. So I try. But if you always call on the people that
Sure.
have their hand up,
Yeah.
then you have like the same 5 kids sharing every time. So it's forcing other kids to participate who might not necessarily do so on their own, and then making sure that everybody's engaged.
Yeah.
In the lesson. And if a student gets called on and they're not quite sure, then I try to give them like hints towards what it is to be successful, so they don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know.
Yeah.
We can figure it out together.
Good. So during this whole group lesson, students were not asked to share their thinking with each other.
Mm-hmm.
In what ways do you provide students that opportunity?
Yeah, whole group, I don't usually do that because it doesn't go really well with this bunch of kids. When we're sitting at a table, small group, if I have more than 2 friends, then the group of 4 or 6, then they can share with the person next to them. But we don't do a whole lot whole group because they tend to be a little off task, and then I've lost them. They have a hard time bringing it back in.
Do you find that it's just with this class, or has it been a trend?
I think it's been a trend, but like last year's class was really good at it. So it just kind of, I think it probably depends more on like how their experience with it
Mm.
and the maturity.
All right. So I know that in our pre-conference we kind of talked about one thing you mentioned was to possibly look at students being engaged during their independent practice time.
Mm-hmm.
I did do a scan of the room after whole group had ended. So I had emailed you this data. I don't know if you got a chance to look
I
at
did.
it.
It was
So yeah, it was good. I mean, a 15-minute lesson I think is appropriate for this age of students. There was a time I marked where they kind of started squirming, but
Yeah.
I think that's pretty normal. But after that whole group, I think it was a 20-minute little moment there, and I took 5-minute data, and there was only one time. I mean, one student, 3 students.
Wasn't bad for a Friday.
Right, and it was
Right.
for a
Could've
Friday,
been worse.
almost right before a break.
Well, it didn't help that when I meet with Ahmed, so he misses the whole group lesson because he's in the ESL room. So he goes from reading lab to ESL and then back to me.
Mhm.
So he misses out on the whole group. So if I don't get him when he gets back, then he misses out on some of the instruction he really needs. And so maybe not having him at the carpet at his spot doing that instruction, that's distracting. I know that's one of the
Right,
spots.
that
when
was
the
one of the
person
spots.
was listening in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of goes back to that question of what would you do differently, and I think that would be something to think about. But as you look at that data, is there anything that maybe surprises you or concerns you or really pleases you, or your thoughts?
Well, of course, you want everybody 100% on task all the time. I wasn't terribly concerned considering it was a Friday, but yeah. So maybe checking in with some of those students because I was trying to see where we put on there sometimes like where the student was. So
Mhm.
trying to figure out which students are those friends to check in with to see if they need different books. Like
Yeah.
we just got new books, but maybe they're not ones they like.
Yeah.
Or it's almost time to switch our read to self spots. We switch it. It's for the whole.
Oh, it is
so
almost
it's almost
changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Sometimes that change is helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, you kind of touched on this, but other than maybe when you reteach that whole group, is there anything that you would do differently, like if you were to teach this lesson again next year?
I don't know. I think having a more variety of the examples that I show the students would be, and then I think definitely having something smaller like the posters that are up there for at the table, so that when we are working on them at the table, I don't have to go grab the poster. Like today, I just grabbed the poster and brought it back here while we were
Yeah.
teaching some of those. But maybe having something smaller that could just be taped to my table or in a book, flipped, the page flipped, so that we could just turn to that one to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Might be more helpful at small group.
All right. So I will kind of go into, we talked a lot about the lesson, kind of shifting gears here, we'll talk about the Danielson components. So first we can discuss the student behavior,
Okay.
if you have that one available.
Mhm.
And if you just want to kind of touch base on, where you think you're at, and maybe some reasoning as to why.
Okay, so I put myself for the expectation section on proficient. So standards of conduct are clear to all students because I feel like I'm very explicit with school expectations and classroom expectations. But not a lot of them distinguish like is developed with student participation, and a lot of them are PBIS expectations, which aren't. I mean, we talk about them, but like they're decided for us.
Right.
So I feel like that it couldn't be over there. Like the class mission statement was the one thing that we really do together, and we problem solve together, like with a plus delta as a class if we need to. But that's student participation is kind of minimal then, because it's kind of it'd be kind of a controlled choice. Like it needs to be what works for my classroom.
Yeah,
Does that make
that's
sense?
yep.
And I have myself proficient for monitoring of student behavior. Just because I was a little unsure about, it says, and their peers' behavior. So students monitor their own and their peers' behavior, and we don't do any of that in second grade because
Right.
then the tone is, well, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's not like they're not old enough to do it in a nice, like, hey, maybe you should do this. Like, we just try to be proactive and just show with our own behavior what people should be doing instead of telling them. Now, granted, like Samuel, who doesn't speak hardly any English, they will show him and help him, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's a little hard. So, so
Yeah.
I put proficient
That's
there.
good.
Response to student misbehavior, I just put proficient. Because I feel like I try to be sensitive to students' individual needs or their likes, but sometimes you just, I don't know. You just don't know for sure
Yeah.
without student input.
Nope, that's very good. We can go ahead and move on to the next component that you had brought up.
So communicating with families, information about the instructional program. I don't know, I had it in between proficient and distinguished. I feel like I communicate a lot. But the student participate in, like, is Seesaw enough of that? Like, they're so, like, maybe black and white, so gray.
Right.
Students participate by sharing via Seesaw and at conferences, but there aren't other opportunities besides what they take home every day to share with their parents. So students participate in preparing these materials is kind of, it's not daily.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that means.
What are some other ways that you have them communicate home?
So if they take work home, so like when we finish a spelling unit, we're working on a certain pattern, then they take that home and they're supposed to share with their parents what words we've been working on. But I've also shared it via Seesaw on the blog.
Yeah.
I don't know. So Otherwise, it's things that I send home,
Mm-hmm.
like progress report updates,
Yeah.
students.
Do the students reflect on those progress reports then on themselves? No?
Mm-mm. That would be good to add. I mean, they reflect on things in here, but it doesn't go home. It
Yeah.
goes in their leadership notebook to share
Mhm.
later,
Mhm.
but never right away. Hmm.
Information.
How about individual students? I put in a proficient. I don't know, like you try, like the distinguished part that I wasn't sure if I'm doing 100%. As response to family concerns is handled with great professional and cultural sensitivity. I think with learning the multiple different cultures in here, like I try to do, to be as sensitive as possible, but
Mhm.
sometimes what you think that culture does isn't necessarily what that family from that culture does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's, yeah, that is, yep. With so many
So-
students in our building from so many different cultures, I think that's
Like I try my best. But I
an
just don't
area
know.
that probably most are not as comfortable with.
Yeah. I think, I'm trying to think how many I have. 4 different cultures.
Yeah.
I mean, multiple students.
Right,
from some,
right.
But, yeah. And then engagement of families in instructional program. I had proficient. Because it's all guided choice. So
Mhm.
students contribute ideas for projects that could be enhanced by family participation. We don't do a lot of that.
What are some ways that you could possibly incorporate that family participation? Or even, maybe what are some ways maybe that you could get the students maybe working more into the creating level on the taxonomy?
Mhm. I don't know, it's so easy with science. With reading, I feel like it's so much harder. I think with having, like with our social studies culture unit, maybe having some of those families come in and share about their cultures would have been a way to include them. We have them share on like a questionnaire things, and then those friends can share with the class, but we don't necessarily invite the parents and families in to do that, which is something that might be, we would need translators. But that would be something, usually we have the culture club come in from the high school, so
Oh.
exchange students come in and share about
Yeah.
where they're from and things like that. But families, if we had enough.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know if the parents of my kids would want to share with 4 other classrooms. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's a little overwhelming, I think, as a parent.
Sure.
But that would be something that might enhance.
What time of year do you guys do you do at the beginning?
Yeah.
That would probably make the most sense.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you. I guess following this, I will have a write-up of, some of the things that I think you were doing very well, and then some of the, things that, some of the things that we talked about. So, that being said, are there, what do you think maybe are 1 to 2 areas of growth that maybe you would just like to focus on?
I think definitely the student reflection part. On the progress reports that I send home, there could be a spot for student reflection on those. And then for next year, definitely seeing that families could come in for the culture activities. Maybe definitely a place to start.
So what supports do you think that you would maybe need, or some people, or resources that you might need to help you with those goals?
Well, I think the student reflection, that's easy on my own, but having families come in, like I would probably collaborate with Lisa Rentz, the ESL teacher,
Mhm.
because she has all the contact information for translators and, yeah. knows how to organize all that stuff. That would be a good resource to
Right?
use,
Yeah.
right? She's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I will go ahead and get that written up and send that out to you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.